When I first heard about a business operations internship at Warner Brothers Animation, the first thing that came to mind was, what does business operations mean? And so I Googled it and I read the job description. And then the second thing that came to mind was that this is the perfect internship for me. So I just finished this internship like a week ago, and I learned a lot of things from doing it. So today I wanted to share with you, YouTube, some things that I learned from my Warner Brothers business operations internship. So the Warner Brothers business operations team does all of the behind the scenes work that helps the company actually run. So you got to think about like the financial information, you got to think about the operations stuff, like how many chairs you got to put in the building to have everyone have a seating area. It's like a lot of logistics stuff, but it's really fun and fulfilling work for the most part. So I wanted to talk today about all the things that I thought were really interesting about my internship and share some of them with you. So to start off, I learned a lot about how to give a presentation. And I thought I learned a lot about presentations from school, because they always tell you like, you shouldn't put just like crazy transitions on the slide and do like a disco ball going into the next slide. But like, it turns out that business presentations are very different things. They are a much more refined sort of presentation. And so you have to have a really definite framework going into like the presentation for a business meeting, as opposed to school, where I feel like you can have a lot more of a free-flowing kind of style. So from my internship, I learned that there are very specific templates that get used at these companies. So having a template really helps with making the presentation overall. You don't have to put like all of your effort into thinking about, okay, like, am I gonna put the slide like here? Am I gonna put it here? Am I gonna put it here? You have to sort of just like fill in the blanks, and it's like a puzzle, and puzzles are fun. So a lot of the presentations that I did were focused on the content of the presentation as opposed to the actual setup of it, which really helped me to, I felt like, refine my presentation skills themselves. So I was able to think about speaking more slowly and really communicating my ideas to the audience in a way that differed from the presentation slides, because nobody likes to just hear like, hello, my name is John, and I'm from this place, and I do this. Like, no one wants to listen to that. It's boring. So instead, I tried to like deviate from the slides as much as possible to the best of my ability. I wasn't always like the best at it, but I learned a lot about how to like go about balancing things. And I also learned how to use PowerPoint for the first time, and I learned about the importance of speaker notes. Speaker notes are the best. It basically like takes away the fear of forgetting what you're gonna say during a presentation, and you can basically just like read the notes the whole time. And if you read them the right way, it seems like it's natural and authentic. So love that. PowerPoint was a big upgrade. I used Google Slides before. I still like Google Slides a lot, but like those speaker notes in presentation mode in PowerPoint, awesome. I love it. Next thing, there is so much jargon that gets used. I think a lot of business in general, I don't know if like this applies to other industries as well, but at least in the entertainment industry, a lot of the business that gets done is just jargon every single meeting. So like when I first started out, I felt like I was just listening to total gibberish. I was sitting in on these meetings and I felt like a friend that was sitting in on another friend group that I like kind of knew and kind of hung out with every now and then. Like I didn't know the lore. So they were talking about like all of these anecdotes and stories that I had no idea where they were coming from, and I would have to get like caught up on the lore in order to understand what they were talking about. And a lot of that lore consisted of jargon, of like early on presentations that had to get done about topics I had no idea what they were. And so I did have managers that filled in the role of that one friend who like explained like, oh, my friend did this, this is like why we're making this story and explaining it like this. But a lot of it was just like catching up and taking notes about what the jargon was. And then after the meetings, I'd have to Google like what SVOD meant, what a lot of these other terms meant that I didn't know. And it was good to like learn about them. And like by the end of the internship, I felt like I was kind of following along a little bit better. It was like I was becoming more fluent in the language of entertainment. Of course, I'm like very far from fluency, I still feel like, but I learned a bunch of jargon. Next thing that I learned was efficient communication. So what we'd often do is we'd have meetings where we talk about our ideas and communicate all of the different things we want to talk about. But after the meetings, we would have this like recap sent out, either via email, via like a Microsoft Teams message, whatever. And it was so helpful to have just like a point by point rundown of all the things that were discussed, because like a lot of us are bad listeners, and I think we just don't like listen enough. So if you just like say something in a meeting and I'm like nodding my head along, I'm like, yep, I'm totally understanding what you're saying, I might just totally be lying and just zoning out. It was really helpful to have a cohesive list of things to refer to that we talked about. And I like that framework a lot. I think I'm going to do that in the future. And I realized about myself that I'm a bad listener. So thanks, Warner. Next thing, I learned how to be a leader. So this wasn't like a concrete thing that I like sat down in a class and had like an itemized list of things to work on. But from the meetings I sat in with my managers, my supervisors, all of like the upper level people, I picked up on like how they lead, and it was very inspiring to me. I think a lot of times what constituted a good leader, at least in my eyes, was someone who was able to listen and connect with the people that they work with. So it didn't, what I'm saying is that like it didn't feel like a hostile work environment at all. It was the complete polar opposite of that. It felt like a family, very much so. And I felt like working with people who felt like family helped to make the work more like personalized and more productive, because you knew that even when you're getting like some kind of feedback, that it's constructive and that it's meant to improve the business as well as like the work itself, as opposed to being like really critical and thinking about just making it harsh to digest. So a lot of the leaders that I watched, they would be very attentive about the topics they talked about. They were really good listeners above everything. They were able to like relay information to teams, because a lot of times I realized that like in the hierarchical structure of the company, you would have a lot of meetings that happened at like the very upper level that a lot of team members wouldn't sit in from the lower levels, and those upper level meetings would have to get their information relayed to the lower level teams. And in order to get relayed the right way, we relied on the people who were in those meetings to very clearly and cohesively communicate what happened in them. So like my bosses were exceptional. They were so good at that, and I picked up on that, and that was something that like I also thought I should do in the future if I'm a leader in like whatever capacity. So that was great to learn. Last thing I learned was concrete numbers. I for so long had no idea what budgets looked like for shows. I didn't know how much it costs to make like an episode of something, how much you need to allocate to development versus production or whatever. But I got some behind the scenes info on that now. I got a really inside scoop on all that information. So it was really interesting to see. And of course I can't leak any of these numbers. I know that Warner Bros is gonna send me, they're gonna come knocking at my door and I'll be missing the next day. Not really. But seeing those concrete numbers and understanding what the metrics actually looked like on a lot of the stuff that we work on, when it comes to either production costs, to the salaries that people are making. I didn't get to see too much of that information, but I heard about it. All of that information helped me to understand what the company looks like as a whole and how the business actually runs. Which like, even though I did another internship last year, I just like did not pick up on any of this. I was more on the creative side of things, which I also loved. But this was a really good way for me to understand how things actually work behind the scenes. It was like the gears that make the machine run in total. So yeah, I felt like that was really good to hear. But all in all, this internship was great. I didn't even know what business operations was before this, but now I feel like I have a very good understanding of business operations in the industry, as well as a lot of information about how the entertainment industry as well as animation works behind the scenes. So yeah, all in all, it was a really great internship. It definitely had a learning curve, but I think I got the hang of it further down the line. I did a lot of research on that jargon, and that was key. But the people I worked with were amazing. The stuff I learned, amazing. All in all, amazing internship. 10 out of 10, would recommend. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe for even more awesome content, and I'll see you in the next video.